the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you!
Our house is on fire.
Even as national governments are not doing enough, mayors and municipalities now in cities.
Global environmental crisis, origin and manifestation of this crisis. So, changing environmental conditions have influenced the evolution of human and other species since the appearance of life on Earth. Indeed, until the late Paleolithic era, environmental crises arose almost entirely from natural conditions. A growing consensus among archaeologists recognizes that global climatic and environmental changes over geological time created a condition under which biological evolution took place. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for some 200 million years ago, but disappeared rather suddenly, perhaps because of purely natural global environmental catastrophe caused by collision of the Earth with an asteroid. About 30 million years ago, the Earth entered a long-term cooling phase that devastated the extensive forest cover that had nourished the dinosaurs. A cooler and drier global climate favored the development of savannas, prairies, and grasslands, which in turn favored the increase of large herbivores, mammals like horses, cattle, and antelopes, as well as their predators. Once human species had appeared on the face of the Earth, purely natural conditions continued to influence their fates far more than human species themselves influence environmental change. Like other animals, human beings including Homo habilis, Homo ergaster, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, and Homo sapiens, among other human species, adapted to condition through learning or evolution or both. Thanks to superior brain power, ability to communicate complex messages accurately, and a capacity to accumulate knowledge, Homo sapiens proved to be particularly effective competitor for the Earth's resources. So since the emergence of large-scale hunting, and especially after the invention of agriculture, environmental crises have increasingly reflected to the influence of human behavior and human policies. During the course of Holocene epoch, the period from about 12,000 years ago until present, anthropogenic effects on natural environment have influenced even larger parts of the Earth and have posed threats to social stability in regional context. So human activity had environmental influence before the invention of agriculture. After they developed effective hunting techniques, human being placed pressure on some animal species. So 2 points are already clear. The first one is the environmental crisis have threatened humans and other species for as long as there has been life on Earth. And second, because of their higher intelligence and abilities to communicate and innovate, human beings have found their own ways to amplify natural effects or even to create a new environmental threats in the course of pursuing their individual and collective interest. Meanwhile, also following from their intelligence, humans have discovered increasingly ingenious ways to exploit energy resources for their own benefit. Over the past 12,000 years or so, human beings have turned even larger portions of energy available in the world to their own uses. So after they learned to control fire, they captured more energy for their own uses than other animals, but only marginally so, consuming about 5,000 calories per day in food and other energy uses combined. And with the adaptation of agriculture, human energy use more than doubled to about 12,000 calories per capita per day, including food consumption for both humans and animal stocks, as well as energy used for heat, construction, agriculture, commerce, production, and crafts. So at this point, a very brief overview of the environmental crisis may be helpful. So it is important to emphasize that a wide range of views about the nature and severity of the current environmental crisis exist, and some of the issues are highly controversial, but nonetheless, there is broad agreement that the environmental crisis encompasses the following main issues, like climate change, stratospheric ozone depletion, degraded air quality and water quality, land contamination, and deforestation. In climate change, it occurs largely as a result of combustion of fossil fuels, emission from agriculture and pastoralism, and land use changes that accompany this destruction, clearance and burning of forests. Climate change already has observable ecological and social effects, and its projected impacts could potentially result in profound changes in global mean surface temperature, sea level, ocean circulation, precipitation patterns, climatic zones, species distribution, and ecosystem functions. So in stratospheric ozone depletion, this is depletion of stratospheric ozone due to the pollution of the atmosphere by halocarbons such as chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs that can be found in our refrigerators. It is another serious environmental issue. It is a significant concern because of the lack of protective ozone at high altitude results in increased level of harmful solar ultraviolet or UVB radiation reaching the Earth's surface, causing a range of health-related and ecological impacts. So in degraded air and water quality, other forms of air pollution are also significant, particularly at regional and local scales, as they may seriously degrade air quality. Worldwide, approximately 1 billion people inhabit areas, mainly industrial cities, where unhealthy levels of air pollution occur. Similarly, water quality can be seriously degraded by contamination with pollutants, giving rise to a range of health-related and ecological effects, such as degradation of coral reefs. A major source of water pollution is the terrestrial runoff to inshore waters that occurs in many coastal locations, such as runoff may contain significantly elevated levels of nitrogen and phosphorus from agricultural land, and from human settlements. So oil spills, accumulation of plastics, and bioaccumulation of persistent organic chemicals are some of the other causes of serious degradation of the marine environment. So lastly, land contamination occurs as a result of chemical or radioactive pollution, especially by long-lived chemical species that enter the soil. Land contamination may cause profound ecological effects, and it presents severe constraint of development, since contaminated land must typically be rehabilitated before it is safe to use for agriculture, construction, and recreation. So, what can the government do? So, as individuals, we know about small action we can take to help reduce the emission that cause climate change, but what can and should our governments do? Seeing as their large-scale action are fundamental to the welfare of their people. So each year, at the United Nations Climate Conference, global leaders meet to discuss action we can take to help prevent and be better prepared for climate change. At their meeting, the first binding global climate record, the Paris Agreement, was born. This year, during COP23, delegates seek to establish rules to allow for its proper implementation. As individuals, most of us understand what we can do to reduce emissions, save energy, use the car less, recycle more, make better consumption choices, and engage in family planning. What can our government do? So, protect and restore key ecosystems. Government must protect ecosystem key to the fight against climate change, like rivers, wetlands, ocean, forests, and especially mangroves absorb large quantity of carbon, slowing warming. Mangroves also serve as a barrier against tropical storms, and wetlands absorb excess water from floods, both extreme weather events exacerbated by climate change. So support small agriculture producer. Government can make a difference by supporting small local producer who, unlike large factory farms, employ sustainable practices, care about land restoration, benefit nearby communities, and make animals and crops more resilient to climate change. It's less about everybody becoming vegetarians, but more supporting those who produce our food with a respect for nature. So that's all.
Today, our environment is constantly changing. The climate change or the global warming is the greatest environmental threat we have ever faced. Today, the battle to defend biodiversity has become crucial because it is the battle to preserve the survival of the entire planet as well as the humanity itself. What we are facing today is the irreparable loss of entire ecosystems, a global climate crisis that threatens us all and development of infectious diseases with devastating consequences as demonstrated by what we are experiencing these days. So, I will be explaining the relationship between population growth and environmental crisis. So, population growth are the increase in the number of individuals in a population. Population growth is difficult to predict because unforeseen events can alter birth rates, death rates, migration, or the resource limits on the population growth. Birth rates may decline faster than predicted due to increased access to contraception, later ages of marriage, the growing desire of many women in such setting to seek careers outside of child rearing and domestic work, and the decreased economic utility of children in industrialized cities. Countries may also choose to undertake mitigation measures to reduce population growth. For example, in China, the government has put policies in place that regulate the number of children allowed to each couple. Other societies have already begun to implement social marketing strategies in order to educate the public on overpopulation effects. Certain government policies are making it easier and more socially acceptable to use contraception and abortion methods. So environmental issues are defined as problems with the planet system that has developed as a result of human interference or mistreatment of the planet. Environmental issues are harmful effects of human activity on the biophysical environment. Environmental protection is the practice of protecting the natural environment on the individual, organization, or government levels for the benefit of both the environment and the humans. Environmentalism, a social and environmental movement, addresses environmental issues through advocacy, education, and activism. So, what is the relationship of population growth and environmental issues? The relationship between population growth and environmental issues are often interrelated and complex. As the global population continues to grow, limits on such global resources as arable land, potable water, forests, and fisheries have come into sharper focus. Population growth is associated with negative environmental and economic outcomes ranging from the impact of overfarming, deforestation, and water pollution to eutrophication and global warming. While a lot of positive steps are being taken to better ensure the sustainability of human on our planet, the problem of having too many people have made lasting solutions more challenging to find. More people require more resources, which means that as the population increases, the Earth's resources deplete more rapidly. The result of this depletion is deforestation and loss of biodiversity as humans strip the Earth of resources to accommodate rising population numbers. Population growth also results in increased greenhouse gases, mostly from carbon dioxide emissions. For visualization, during that same 20th century that saw fourfold population growth, carbon dioxide emission increased 12-fold. As greenhouse gases increase, so do climate patterns, ultimately resulting in the long-term pattern called climate change. Human activities like burning of fossil fuels have increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by more than a third since the Industrial Revolution. The rapid increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has warmed the planet at an alarming rate, while Earth's climate has fluctuated in the past. Atmospheric carbon dioxide hasn't reached today's level in hundreds of thousands of years. Climate change is having consequences of our oceans, our weather, our food sources, and our health. Ice sheets such as Greenland and Antarctica are melting. The extra water that was once held in the glaciers causes sea levels to rise and spill out of the oceans, flooding of coastal regions. Climate change can directly affect people's physical health. In urban areas, the warmer atmosphere creates an environment that traps and increases the amount of smog. This is because the smog contains ozone particles which increase rapidly at higher temperatures. Exposure to higher levels of smog can cause health problems such as asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer. So all in all, the term population growth is used to describe a situation in which the world or area has a population of so large that the population there are suffering as a result. In other words, the population exceeds the regions or planet's carrying capacity, the number of people, other living organisms, or crops that can be supported without environmental degradation. Their suffering may include a shortage of food, less water, deforestation, pollution, and climate change, and that is the relationship of population growth and environmental issues.
What is the relationship of population growth to food security? So increasing numbers of people often drive up demand for food, which typically results in additional use of arable land and water. This is especially true in the absence of adequate food production, technology, and integral programs that simultaneously address community needs for food and reproductive health. Overall demand for food is affected by population growth, while economic development and rising incomes tend to shift diets toward meat and animal products that are more expensive and resource intensive to produce. Food prices are driven by the prices of key agricultural commodities such as meat and grain, stocks of agricultural stores, energy prices, crop failures, demand for biofuels, and agricultural trade policies. Delving from the fact that the natural resources are at stake and it can no longer provide the needs of the people, it is seen as a major problem that extreme growth of population will lead to extreme hunger and helplessness if and only if it's not managed and utilized well by our world leaders. So, Thomas Malthus was the first to address the food scarcity as an issue and defended the hypothesis that growing global population will eventually eclipse the Earth's capacity to feed it. The power of population is indefinitely greater than the power in the Earth to produce the subsistence for the man. Nearly 1 billion people are undernourished, hungry, and living without adequate daily calories. It's sad to say that people that most severely affected by food prices are those people already living in poverty. So these effects of population growth nevertheless includes the social friction such as crime, xenophobia, the resurgence of racism, the traffic congestion, and the health impacts due to pollution. Additionally, the impacts of climate change on temperature, precipitation, and agricultural productivity are likely to diminish food security in some places. Most of the countries with the highest numbers of people facing food insecurity also have high fertility rates and rapid population growth. This increases the challenge of adequately meeting nutritional needs for food production depends on croplands and water supply, which strain as human populations increase. Pressure on limited land resources driven in part by population growth can make expansion of cropland. This often involves destructions of virtual forest resources or overexploitation of arable land. Thus, investment in sustainable technologies able to support increased agricultural intensity will be crucial for both meeting the demands of a growing population and adapting to environments increasingly affected by climate change. Increased production of food alone will not solve the world's food security problem. Projections from the International Food Policy and Research Institute or IFPRI suggest that slower population growth could significantly lower malnutrition along with increased agricultural productivity, economic growth, and investment in health education because population trends will continue to affect the demand for food for decades to come. It is important that demographic projections be incorporated into plans to improve agricultural production and achieve greater food security. Increasing access to voluntary family planning would improve women's and children's health. It would also allow couples to plan some spaced childbearing, enhancing their ability to provide enough food for their families' investment in international family planning and productive health can improve a family's well-being at a household level, while helping to slow population growth in areas most affected by food insecurity. So the most challenging part is reducing poverty and promoting human well-being, while at the same time ensuring the sustainability of the natural environment is inseparable from population patterns and trends. So in order to feed the billions global population, it will only be possible if global cooperation is increased to promote more sustainable agricultural practices, respectively.
Good day, sir. I am Dec Cadet Kalamuhoy Deo J. Vinar, and I'm going to discuss on what is the relationship of population growth to sustainability. So, sustainability focuses on meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. The concept of sustainability is composed of three pillars: economic, environmental, and social. The relationship between population growth to sustainability have been investigated by many people around the world. It is said that population growth rate has a negative effect on sustainable development according to the estimates obtained with data from 146 countries covering 1990 to 2012 period. The increase in human population will accelerate the depletion of resources as competition for limited resources will increase. Population growth is increasingly pressing on the environment, which provides both resources and resources. Moreover, the only problem is not pressure. Today, more than 1 billion people live in extraordinary poverty. Some of these people live in slums, while others are far from finding a good job to rescue their lives. Increasing human population also causes unbalanced distribution of resources, leading more people to food insufficiency. This means that population growth will directly affect sustainability. So, according to Malthus 1976, population control is necessary for humanity in order not to overtake the world's carrying capacity, because the power of population in this direction is unlimitedly greater than the power of Earth to provide for livelihood of the human being. So, these statements clearly emphasizes how population growth will destroy the Earth's sustainability. Population is at the heart of all global problems, and that population growth must be controlled. Therefore, the slowdown in population growth will contribute not only to reducing the pressure on the environment, but also to the further deterioration of resource allocation. With the unstoppable growth of the population every day, the concept of sustainable development ran to the aid of our world, which has to feed more people with scarce resources. The impact of population growth on chances for sustainability depends on how the rise in air pollution decreases labor productivity through raising the rate of morbidity. Even with rapid population growth rate plays a minor role in creating a specific problem, such as its indirect negative impact on labor productivity and thus economic growth. Population management policies may still constitute a viable measure for dealing with that problem, especially with respect to the policy intervention cost. Population growth negatively affects the state's ability to achieve a sustainable development via its negative impact on the environment. Environmental degradation, in turn, leads to adverse effects on population, particularly with regard to public health. These negative effects on health lead to lower labor productivity, thus hinder the state's ability to sustain development. Population and sustainability are part of the same equation, adding up to single largest threat to biodiversity, the human impact. If we all reduce our environmental footprint without addressing human population growth, our sheer numbers will continue to push other species out. If we slow population growth without getting rampant overconsumption under control, the planet will continue to be stripped of the resources needed by other species and us to thrive.
What is the relationship of population growth to development? So first, we need to define what is population growth and development. So, population growth is the increase in the number of individuals in a certain population or city, while development is an increase in the size of economy, which means that more products and services are being produced. And conventionally, there's a common saying or assumption that if an economy generates more products and services, then humans will enjoy higher standards of better living. Also, economic development is the process by which the economic well-being and the quality of life of a nation, region, local community, or individual are improved according to the targeted goals and objectives. The relationship of population growth to development is divided into two, which is the positive and negative relationship. Low population growth in high-income countries is likely to create social and economic problems, while high population growth in low-income countries may slow their economic development. And according to a study, international migration could help to adjust these imbalances, but this is opposed by many people. So now we tackle the positive relationship of population growth to development. So the quantity, quality, structure, distribution, and movement of population can help or hinder the rate of economic development. A developed country with low population density and a low percentage of employable people needs an increase in population in order to keep up with economic development. And also, there is a widespread agreement that population growth is a crucial factor in the process of social and economic development. Moreover, rapid population growth reduces the proportion of houses, making less more money available for per capita investment in both physical and human capital. And also, there's a saying that a man is a producer as well as a consumer. And in order to balance the rate of production and the rate of consumption, a certain population must be maintained. The status of an economy determines the appropriate level of population growth. So the next is the negative relationship population growth to development. So it is said that population growth has been and will continue to be problematic as more people use more finite resources available on Earth, which is the natural resources. They're reducing long-term potential growth, and also population growth affects many phenomena such as the age structure of the country's population, international migration, economic inequality, and the size of country's workforce. These factors affect and are affected by overall economic growth. In underdeveloped countries, rapid growth of population diminish the availability of capital per head, which reduce the productivity of its labor force. Their income as a consequence is reduced and their capacity to save is diminished, which is turned to adversely affected their capital information. And also, given that there is a fixed quantity of land, population growth will eventually reduce the amount of resources that each individual can consume, ultimately resulting in disease, starvation, and war that can lead to destroying the earth and extinction of the human race.
Good day everyone, I'm the Cadet Kasipong Francis Lil, and I'm here to discuss what is the relationship of population growth to the future of globalization. First of all, globalization has both direct and indirect effect on population. Certainly, the movement of people around the world has accelerated the spread of diseases such as HIV, AIDS, and SARS. More importantly, however, the global spread of public health, medical, and family planning, technology has played a key role in worldwide gains in life expectancy and reduction in fertility. Over the past 50 years, support from international donors has been critical in improving life expectancy and reducing fertility through the global spread of modern health and family planning technology. In several Asian countries, these efforts have contributed to unprecedented economic growth. More broadly, international support has been remarkably successful in reducing the gap in fertility and life expectancy between rich and poor countries. Now, it's not the time to reduce international assistance to population and reproductive health programs that have proven so spectacularly successful. Historically, population growth has served as an impetus for exploration and colonization. This is to some extent in the case of European colonization of the Americas and Oceania, where colonization involved substantial immigration. In both cases, colonization may have served as an outlet from Malthusian pressures in Europe. The same cannot, however, be said of European conquest in Asia and Africa, because they did not lead to substantial immigration. We hypothesize that there are two ways in which population factors may have influenced colonization. First, in the 16th and 17th century, European population growth led to increased shortages in agricultural land and provided the impetus for migration to an explosion of the land-rich, labor-poor Americas, which has undergone depopulation through contacts with Europe. Second, larger population and economies gave European countries the power and wealth needed to mount expedition and to secure military conquest. How population influences war and security remains a controversial topic. However, about which no strong consensus has emerged. In recent years, population has influenced globalization via two channels by influencing relative factor endowments and by influencing the national distribution of global income. The analysis emphasized the first channel and pays particular attention to how this channel has led to the rapid development of East Asian countries over the last 50 years. Population change has a fundamental bearing on factor endowments and the substantial differences between the wealthiest and the poorest countries in the world. The importance of population to relative endowments of physical capital and labor follows from the tautological relationship between capital per worker, investment, and labor force growth. Either a rise in the rate of investment or decline in the rate of labor force growth produces an increase in capital per worker known as capital deepening. The importance of changes in labor force growth is shown empirically. Countries with the slowest rates of population growth have the highest rates of capital deepening, whereas countries with the highest rates of labor force growth has the lowest rates of capital deepening. So that's all. Thank you.